Before I install the new bushing, I'll start by wiping down the control arm, hitting it with a wire brush, and then painting any spots of bare metal. And then I'll work on marking the old bushing in place, removing and replacing it. So this control arm is relatively rust-free, but once you get it as clean as you want to and paint any spots to prevent future rust, find yourself two straight edges, and I'm going to clock the current position of the bushing two separate ways. So you can see down the bottom there's going to be an arrow on the bushing that points down and a little bit of white paint from the manufacturer, but that's kind of worn away. So I'm going to remark that spot there, and then I'm going to take a straight edge and I'm going to use the straight edge and put it up against this flat portion here, and then I'm going to make two marks with white paint by using a paint stir stick. So I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So this is how it came out. I clocked 4 different positions of the old bushing. And the new bushing is getting cold in the freezer. I had it in there overnight, and the cold temperature should help contract the metal just a little bit, and hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to press into place. So I'm going to let this paint here dry maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It doesn't have to be perfectly dry. I just don't want to get it smudged. And then after that, I'll work on taking this old bushing out. As you can see, it's all cracked up in there, and the other side's in even worse shape. So in order to extract it, I did purchase a special tool. It's a little bit expensive. You can find it for around $180 to $200 online. It's by SCHLEY parts. And the last measurement that you want to take before you start removing the old bushing is the overall depth of the bushing. And by spec, it should be 10 to 12 millimeters pressed in. And the easy way to tell that, besides grabbing a ruler, would be to grab a straight edge, and then on mine, sliding that straight edge over there, the old bushing is level with the top of the actual control arm itself. So I'll be looking for the same thing when I install the new bushing. So it's right up to it. So this is what the other side looks like, and I'll show you just how cracked this one bushing is. So if you are going to use this special tool, a couple things to remember. First, remember that your bushings are marked with the arrow going down. So going forward, remember that. And then this, for example, this would be on the driver's side control arm. So then when you use the special tool, it goes around it, and then look for the up arrow. So that's going to be facing the opposite direction of the arrow on the bushing. And then that's going to sit around the control arm like this. And then this cup is going to go over the bushing like that. And then this piece here is going to sit inside of this contraption like this. And make sure you use some lubricating oil on the threads, and it's a 14 millimeter that sits on top, and it says don't use an impact with it, so I'm going to try using a very small breaker bar and see if I can just spin it around the top. So that should push this cup inwards and then push the bushing out through the other side, and I expect this is going to take around 10 minutes. We'll see how it goes. So I ended up having to use a 2-foot breaker bar because it does take a lot more torque and force than I thought it would in order to start pressing that old bushing out. And according to the tool manufacturer, they say don't use an impact gun on that. So that's why I have a very long breaker bar. So this is the new bushing right out of the freezer. and I'm going to try to work quick. Things to look for, remember that arrow is pointing down, and then if you look at the bushing, the shorter metal portion is towards the outward, so that's going to be facing up here, and the longer metal portion is going to be facing down. So what I did was I marked it with paint, just like how I had the old one marked, and then I'm going to drop this into place there. I did use a little bit of lubricant, a little bit of moly grease on the inside portion of the lower control arm, and then I'm going to try my best to get it into place here and start pressing it down. So I found it helpful to get started with a rubber mallet. Position it as best you can inside the lower control arm, and then use the rubber mallet and pound around until you get it in there pretty set and somewhat level. And then after that, put the press on top of it.